I regain control of my senses and grab a hold of the modified javelin, aiming the heavy weapon out and into the night. The great shadowy shape of the man between the mountains is way too far away to hit from here. But I flicker the weapon's sights and do my best to aim towards the source of the thing that struck the tower. As I look, however, a second of those shadowy arrows tears through the air towards my position. I flinch, and quick as a flash it strikes the tower in more or less the same place, just up and over to my left. Brick and mortar is sent raining down with clouds of dust and smoke blasting out into the snow. Returning to the weapon with a grimace, I take quick aim and fire. Those 4 burning, glass-like balls bursting out from the barrel, tumbling down for a second, for 2, and then shooting up and out towards the target, splitting into further projectiles as they rain that dazzling light out into the gorge. But this rain is too little, and too late. There is a second thunder-like boom and the floor shakes. I release the weapon in alarm and push myself across the floor to the tower's opposite side. As an enormous section of wall and roof simply breaks away, it collapses with a juddering thud, and then falls slowly to the courtyard below with an almighty crash and rumble. The wind billows with renewed power into the room and it chills me to the bone. Snow too is blown in great swaths as I consider abandoning my post. Rule 5. Keep a constant presence in the tower. Fuck. I scramble through the dust and debris to the weapon on the far side only to realize that it has been lost. Where the weapon was once fixed is now only bare, cracked stone. I grab the ledge and look down over the edge, and I catch a glimpse of the mechanism smashed to parts and pieces on the snow-swept ground far below. I lift my gaze and watch in horror as the demons begin clambering their way over the outpost's surrounding wall. Some of them seem to struggle with this, despite the fact that the wall is only waist high. Some of the demons visibly diminish in size and form as they pass over, but as more and more of these creatures breach the wall, the easier it becomes for their fellows to follow. They follow the paths made by the trailblazers, opting to cross the wall in narrow streams before spreading out again once they're inside the courtyard. I catch sight of movement on the outpost roof in the shadows. Either Alina or April has relocated, and new beams of light are sent blasting down to the ground. The light tears through the stream of the demons, but there are simply too many. There are just too many. I grit my teeth and grab a hold of the javelin, bringing it round with a mechanical crunch and firing a new burst of the 4 projectiles directly down into the courtyard. The air lights with fire and the sparkler-like rain pours down across the shadowy spread beneath, to a chorus of charred and rattling bones. A third of those dark, arrow-like shadows streaks through the darkness and hammers into the side of the tower, and this one hits the surest. The entire structure seems to waver as a section of rock and brick is blown the hell to pieces, and another corner of wall simply drops down and away, exposing the upper floor almost entirely to the natural force of the elements. The wind whips back my hair and makes my eyes water as I grab a hold of the smaller of the weapons, firing off furious further blasts to the source of these new attacks. The demons clamber up the mountainsides. They spill over the wall. I watch with desperate anguish as they begin to throw themselves against the outpost. Rows of them are evaporated in the beams of the weapons. But there are always more. Always, the endless, ceaseless horde. There is another rumble, and, to my utter dismay, the section of floor I am standing on simply collapses. My stomach lurches as I am dropped. Stone clatters all around me and the weapon tumbles forwards and over the edge. I swivel on the spot as I slip and stumble, reaching out for something, for anything to grab. But my hands catch nothing but air, and down I go, over the edge. I shout out loud in panic, throwing out my hand in one last desperate attempt. My fingers scratch down the flooring and I am unable to get a grip. However, it slows my descent just enough for me to being up my other hand, and I manage to grab instead a ruined section of wall a little ways farther down the tower. I fall maybe 7 or so feet from my position. Muscles painfully pulled taut as the brick and stone and the weapon continue their downwards trajectory, smashing to pieces on the cold hard ground far below. My feet kick in the air for a moment as I hang there precariously. Then they find a section of broken stone and I am able to perch. I carefully release my grip to assess my current situation. I stand on a section of ruined tower. There is just enough space for my feet. There is not enough space for me to sit down, however. I look around. There is a hole in the tower's wall just big enough for me to put a hand in, as a kind of hold to help me support myself. But there is nothing else. There is nothing for me to grab onto, and nowhere for me to climb. No way back into the tower, no way back up, and no way down. I am stuck here, weaponless and alone. The wind roars past my position and I lean back against the brick, jaw clenched as I feel a smattering of loose rubble get brushed past my feet and sent tumbling over the edge. Shit, shit, shit. All I can do is watch as the demons rush through the courtyard, as the beams of light tear between them, as clattering bones are sent bursting out in clouds of smoke, and as the creatures continue their relentless assault of the outpost, slamming against the doors, against the windows, against the concrete. I can only catch glimpses in the erratic, flashing light, but I swear I can see modest cracks beginning to form. And the demons see this too. As soon as the first faint crack appears in the concrete, this becomes their new target. The tide of demons grows larger and larger, swelling and rolling like waves. I turn my head to the side, squinting into the screaming wind, watching as the enormous man made of shadow in the mountains closes his mist-like, silvery eyes. He crouches down and is lost to the shadows, his form returning to the darkness between the peaks and the billowing snow clouds. "What are you?" I whisper into the night, and in my ear comes a response. "I am the spirit of my people. Ask yourself why you are forbidden to converse with us. They are afraid that you will come to understand, to lay down your arms. Adam, we must be allowed entry into the outpost. We are close now. We have been close before. And unless this is the final attempt, the cycle of blood will continue. I seek only what is mine." Adam, for a moment, a long, cold moment, the song in the air is lifted from its chaos into a beautiful, yet haunting melody. I do not recognize the language, but I can feel the emotional weight of the words nonetheless. It is an anthem I am hearing. I decide, an anthem from long, long ago. I close my eyes, for reasons unknown to me. I feel an icy tear slip its way down my cheek, and I see her. A vision in my mind's eye, the woman from the painting, come alive, in swirling, smoke like mists of gold and silver and black and white. I cannot see her face, as it is obscured by snow and fog and ash, but she is surrounded by fire. Her cross is held high, glinting with amber and yellow in the firelight as sparks drift across my field of vision. She stands on a rocky hill above a clamoring, horizonless crowd. I hear screams. I see hands reaching out for her, scrabbling and scratching at the stone as the smoke thickens darkly in the air. I hear the sound of thunder, the flashing of lightning and the cracking and crumbling of rock. And as Olga of the Ruse turns to face me, the vision is lost. I find myself stumbling. The air rushes past my face as I begin my fall. The dark swell of the demons beneath me draws closer. The rope knocks past my shoulder. Rope. I swivel as I fall, twisting around and grabbing desperate hold of this rope from the heavens, my entire body weight held in its proverbial arms as it tightens, and I shout out loud in pain as I am carried back to the tower, striking my side against its brickwork, hard. But I am alive. Stones tumble down below and I reorient myself, hands burning on the rope, feet square against the tower's brick. I crane my neck to look up to the rope's source, way overhead, and there in the storm at the top of the tower is Yuri. He stares down at me, his eyes wide and wild. "Dobry den, Dalbob," he shouts down at me. And then, in a thick, almost indecipherable accent, he says something else. One more phrase just about caught above the rush of the wind. "No idiot man left behind." And with this, he starts to pull on the rope, hauling it up, one hand over the other, shocked back into life at the sound of clattering bones way below. I try my best to help, to ascend back to the perch, then to clamber back up, using the rope to hold my weight as I do so. After several long, exhausting minutes, Yuri is able to reach out and grab the back of my jacket, and he hauls me onto the uppermost level of the tower. We collapse onto the remains of the snow-streaked, rubble-ridden floor, catching our breaths as the lights flash and the demons wail. How the fuck? He snorts and spits, getting back up to his feet and looking down over the edge, examining the nightmare way below. Tower explode. I see. Abandoned post to save idiot. He sighs and shakes his head. Ruin. Pawnee Pizdits. Rule 1. We fail. We fail. I look around, desperately. There are no weapons up here anymore. Most of the Bibles tumbled off in the explosions, though a couple still remain. A quick glance over the edge shows us that the courtyard has essentially vanished, disappeared beneath a black and shadowy tide. There is no way back to the outpost for us now. We are an island in a dark and swirling sea, trapped. The attention of the demons has diverted from the tower. However, their focus is bent wholeheartedly on breaching the building. What the hell are we going to do? Yuri, I ask him, but the man does not reply. So with a grunt I stand up alongside him, and we watch as the demons battle the beams and the clouds drift and crackle overhead. The shadows and the lights clash with flurries of sparks and geysers of smoke and steam. The silhouette of a woman on the outpost roof glimmers in and out of focus. Velina, It must be, but the night plows on. The outpost, to my utter amazement, holds for the bulk of it. It holds against this furious tide. But 20 or so minutes before the sunrise, the walls finally break. A section of concrete surrounding the thick doorframe breaks through. And as the dust pours out, the demons pour in, scrabbling and heaving over each other as they flow through the gap in the wall. Dozens upon dozens all dragging themselves inside, arms and legs blurred into the dark. The others continue the fight. Alina, Charlie and April. The weaponized light is temporarily paused as they presumably move to barricade up the routes onto the roof, and then they resume, energy renewed, swords of gold in the wintry gloom, whistling, burning beams. And the growing mass of charred, blackened bones hang in their guise. I will to them, clenching my fists, hang in there. They hold the line as best as they can. All light now focused on the gap in the wall. The battle rages, then at long last, the shadows start to peel back, and the sun rises, the snow and the wind ease off. And the natural light of the day is gradually returned to the world. The song quickly tapers off to be lost on the breeze. And the last of the demons tear across the ruined courtyard to the gap in the wall, smoking and steaming as they do so. Some of them are slowed, as if stuck and entrapped, and they melt away into oblivion. That thick, tarry smoke drifting up and away into the air. Others are successful and make it to the gap. But all these stragglers are caught in the beams and evaporated. Yuri and I exchange a look. Some got in, though. Some definitely got in. How many? It's hard to tell, but surely no less than 50. More, perhaps. There are no words exchanged. It's time to go and clear out the remainders. And to assess the damage. Remainders, I think to myself as we descend the ladder. Single file. We're not talking remainders here. We're talking a sizable, dangerous force. Will the sun clear them out? Or are they all still in there? What the hell could 50 demons achieve altogether? What have they done? My anxiety spikes with every step of the journey as we reach the floor of the tower with that crappy, pipe-leaking bathroom, as we descend the second ladder, as we make our way back down the stairs. Around and around, as we pass by the painting of Olga of Kiev, Olga of the Ruse, we push through the tower's door to the world beyond, to wreckage and ruin. Broken rock, smashed up stone, and thousands upon thousands of bones, some more blackened than others, but all charred to a degree. They come up almost to our knees. These bones, and they rattle and clatter as we try to kick and shove them aside. Yuri turns and heaves some ribs away with a loud rattling, swearing as he does so, searching beneath them for the remains of the weapons, the ones that tumbled from the tower's peak. I reach down myself and pick up one of the bones for a closer look. It's a rib piece, almost entirely whole. I look past it to the sea of bones beyond, and really pay attention to each of the individual parts, ribs, sections of spine, but I can see them more clearly now. My previous experiences with the bones involved me only seeing them for a split second, clattering down the mountainside out of sight in the dark, but now they are laying right at my feet. Illuminated in the light of the rising sun, they are stuck to each other with a thick, viscous black tar-like substance, but they are quite obviously human. I realize, human-shaped and sized, at the least. There are broken hip bones, pieces of arm and leg, an almost complete arm and a hand still loosely connected with that disgusting tar rests on a charred, cracked, and decidedly human skull. Right by my foot, I swallow. My mouth dry, my lips peeling from the icy wind. I look over to Yuri, and the man stands back up with armfuls of broken machinery. The bulk of one of the weapons from the top of the tower, or, to be more accurate, its remains. He nods and grunts at me and we continue, heading across the courtyard. My hands going for my gun as we draw closer and closer to the gap in the concrete. I've scarcely had to use the thing so far, but images of Alina shooting down Christian's possessed body return to the forefront of my mind. The sound of gunfire from within the complex sends a hammer through my heart, and we break into a run, onwards in aid of our comrades. The morning light is clear now, bright and sparkling through the thick, heavy glass of the outpost windows. Yuri dumps the equipment he is carrying at a crossroads in the corridor and begins tearing through it, rebuilding and reorganizing the mechanisms with his bare hands at lightning speed. He shouts something at me, but it's in Russian and I don't understand. I get the idea though. I think. I raise my weapon and move from wall to wall, checking the lines of sight down the corridors. The place is full of bones, of broken concrete, of thick, sludgy tar, splattered way up to the ceiling. I hear a crash and another series of gunshots, coming from down the hall to my right. I know what's down there. It's the room that Charlie showed me. with the little hole scratched and torn away through the floorboards. The meeting hall, or whatever it was. Yuri, I know where they are. He snorts and spits and makes a gesture with his hand. Go on then. It seems to say, and so I do. I head down the corridor with careful focus, looking this way and that for any signs of a struggle before rounding the corner and glancing through the open doorway to the meeting room. There's a demon inside. That much is clear. Elena and April are in there also. I look back at Yuri and make a gesture with my hand. He swears under his breath, nods, and grabs up the remains of the weapon with a few final adjustments. We breach the room, loudly and clearly. Elena and April take hasty steps towards a pile of stacked up chairs in the corner, and the demon crashes from wall to wall like a trapped bird, sticking itself to the ceiling and slithering rapidly across the concrete. It moves like water, with the consistency of smoke. Every now and then the rough glimpse of a humanoid shape becomes clear in its form. There's a lot to take in at once. The room is a wreck. For starters, where once there was a small hole, barely even waist height, it is now enormous, cavernous, a huge, gaping dark void in the center of the floor. Concrete and wood has been thrown and torn up with reckless abandon and hurled to the sides of the room. And, to my utter and total horror, there is movement down below. Movement in the dark. Death time, mutters Yuri from behind me. And he pulls back the trigger of the weapon in his hands. It starts to burn, brighter and brighter. And using a makeshift catch that he has evidently constructed in the last few minutes, he locks the trigger in place and throws the weapon down into the hole. The beams blast out in a furious circle, whizzing and sparking and screaming with a brilliant white flame. My awe in the power of the light only seems to intensify it further, and I find myself being dragged from the room along with Alina and April as the fire burns and splatters the walls with shattering bones and great explosive bursts of that thick, black tar. We come to a stop around another of the corners, sweating from the heat. But even here the light is of an intensity I have not yet seen. It is dazzling, blinding, almost. I have to shield my eyes, though before I do so I catch a glimpse of Yuri with his eyes already closed, clutching his cross, muttering to himself under his breath. Over and over and over, the screaming of the demons grows louder and louder, the smashing, clattering bones like a constant heavy rain. But after a while these sounds all start to die down. The light fades, the screeching of the demons grows weaker and weaker, until at last it falls completely silent, just us four, breathing heavily in this battered, bruised corridor of the complex. Christ, April murmurs after a beat, her chest rising and falling as she looks between us. Belina swallows, sweat budding on her forehead, and she leads the way, returning to the room with her back straight and weapon raised. But the room is empty now. There is no sign of life at all, or whatever imitation of life it is that the demons boast. The hall is covered in that disgusting tar, and bones litter the floor. The great deep hole in the room's center is dark with the splattered remains, but there is no movement. Footsteps behind us bid us all swivel at once, though it's only Charlie. I am relieved to see that he appears himself. His eyes are as they should be, and he nods at us grimly as he approaches. We didn't do so well last night, did we? He asks rhetorically. He claps me on the shoulder. Good to see you're all right though, mate. I was worried about you, seeing that tower come down. Yeah, I reply, uneasily, still shaken. Yeah, Yuri? Well, I fell off after one of the explosions. Yuri was able to haul me back up. Alina's eyes flicker over to him, and she asks him something in Russian. Yuri shakes his head in response and says nothing further. Time to check out what the bastards were after then, eh? Charlie mutters, reaching to his belt with his scarred, calloused hands, drawing out his flashlight and flicking on the switch. Alina clenches her jaw as Charlie angles the light down into the massive hole that the demons have carved into the rock beneath the outpost. Jesus, would you look at that? He mutters. What the April says. With wide eyes, Yuri raises his eyebrows and reaches for his own flashlight, adding his beam to Charlie's, and we all peer down into the dark. The hole is much deeper now. Of course, I crouch down at its edge and squint into the gloom. I can see a little better what I failed to see the other night. The hole opens up into a wide cavern, an enormous, hollow cavern, right here beneath the outpost. A cavern filled with rows and rows of still and silent statues. They are all arranged in rows, like some terracotta army, but there are women and children amongst the men. These rows of people made of stone extend away in the darkness on all sides. It's impossible to tell how many there might be. Yuri casts his beam over the only visible wall in the cavern down below. The light illuminates a series of runes carved into the rock. I squint. Beneath the lines of large text are what appear to be an early form of Cyrillic, like Russian, but not quite. There's something inherently primitive about it. Yuri mutters under his breath. and stares at Alina, wide-eyed. What the hell are those statues? April asks quietly. This is what the demons were trying to reach. Movement in the cavern below sends a tremor of fear through the group like electricity. It all happens so quickly. A human man, rises suddenly out from the shadows, his hand on the shoulder of a nearby statue. He stares up at us and screams, spittle flying from a mouth of broken teeth. His clothes are ragged and robe-like, ancient-looking, really, and he wears a helmet of dull metal, carved with two ram-like horns on either side. He raises a hand in a quick, blurred motion, pointing towards us. No, not us, at Alina, and I have just enough time to cover my closest ear as Alina promptly raises her weapon. Wait, Charlie shouts out, but she does not. A shot rings out, loud and clear, and the mysterious man in the cavern below goes down like a rock. Dark blood is sprayed across the wall from the back of his head, and the light is lost as the attention of the flashlight bearers turn to Alina. She stares down into the dark, her eyes wide, her lips curl back into a sneer, tightening that ghastly scar. Then she turns away and begins to walk from the room. Charlie stumbles over his words. He calls after her. Alina, what the fuck is going on here? You know something, don't you? April's eyebrows furrow in anger, and she shouts at the Russian as she reaches the doorway. What is happening? Alina, you need to tell us what's going on. Enough is enough. Even Yuri watches the woman in confusion. He cocks his head. He clenches and unclenches his jaw and mutters something in Russian. Alina pauses at the door, and she turns back to us, such that only the good half of her face is visible. Concrete mixes in shed on south side. Concrete chunks and rock can be moved to block gaps. Skeletons cleared. We work now for 1 hour. We sleep for 5, then we work again. Wall is sealed before nightfall. They will come again. You really are hiding something, aren't you? Alina, Charlie mutters, his eyes narrowing as he wipes some dust from his nose. Alina says nothing more. She simply takes her leave, and we listen to the sound of her footsteps as they gradually disappear down the corridor. After a long, cold pause, I turn to Yuri. Yuri, I begin, carefully. Please, man, is there anything you can tell us about Alina that she is hiding? I don't know what it is, but, let's face it, did she seem all that surprised by the discovery down below? I mean, statues of people in the dark, beneath the outpost. I thought this was all about ley lines, or whatever. Yuri, is she hiding something from us? The man's cheek twitches. His dark, shadowed eyes look between us as we regard him. Then he sighs and spits onto the ground. He mutters in Russian, then says, in English, work to do, fix wall, and away he goes. And that's that. As badly as the questions are now burning, the walls take priority. We spend the next hour in relative, contemplative silence. Charlie and I mix rapid setting concrete. April clears the bones and the blood. I catch sight of Alina in the courtyard, carefully redrawing the various symbols across the walls in white chalk, where the demons scrubbed them away. I notice that she seems to be focusing on the Christian ones the most. We get those 5 hours of sleep, and goddamn are they badly needed. They pass by far too quickly, however, and like a zombie I rise to return to work. The gap in the wall is hastily fixed back up with the chunks of broken concrete and the sloppy mix of the new batch. The work is not aesthetic, but it might just do. Yuri searches through the bones for the remains of the weapons and disappears off to some workshop to try and fix them up. We are unable to entirely fix the enormous hole in the meeting hall floor, but we do manage to narrow it down somewhat, and the area above it is heavily nailed over with ugly planks of wood, and with materials we are able to locate in storerooms. What gets me is how poorly prepared the outpost is to fix up this damage. I mean, yes, the concrete mix is available, but the variety of materials at our disposal is incredibly limited, and I can't help but wonder, how do Command even know what lies beneath this place? My mind whirls as I work, as supplies, are restocked. Statues beneath the outpost. A man killed in cold blood. He wasn't possessed, was he? He didn't move like Christian did. He didn't send out a dozen voices at once the way Christian did either. He seemed just human. I rub my hands across my eyes. The demons are trying to get beneath the outpost. They are trying to reach the cavern. They are trying to reach the statues, right? Is that it? But why? What do the demons want with a load of carved rock? I feel like the answer is right in front of me. I'm just missing 1 or 2 pieces of the puzzle. Alina, what do you know? Alina. I start to grow angry, like April was earlier. How dare she keep secrets from us? We're putting our lives at risk here for what? Why are we defending this godforsaken outpost in the middle of the fucking mountains? April is just beside me, and I slam down a chunk of concrete with a cloud of dust, and I turn to her. She looks over and reads my expression, grimacing. what are we going to do about her? I ask. It's obvious who I'm talking about. I don't know, she replies with a sigh. Do we just go and confront her? She scares me. Adam, the way she shot that guy in the cavern. I mean, who was he? Alina knows. Except, what if she doesn't? Would she do that? Kill someone in cold blood without any information at all? What does she know? I think we should go find Yuri. Yuri, he's not going to help us. No, I think he might. He's changed these past couple of days. April, ever since he was dragged over the edge, he's been unsettled for a while now. And I don't think he and Alina are on quite the same page that we thought they were. April hesitates. Come on. I say, let's go find him. He isn't in any of places we check. However, he isn't the workshop. He isn't in comms or anywhere near the tower. We start to become frustrated, then worried. I don't want to call for him over the radio because I'm a little cautious of Alina overhearing. But at long last we locate him. Huddled up in the corner of an archives room, dusty old folders and files laid out before him. Illuminated in the glow of an ancient lamp. Yuri, I mutter. And the guy glances up at me. What are you doing in here, man? The Russian regards me. His eyes flicker from my face to April's. After a measured pause, he gestures to one of the folders on the ground. Kicking it with his foot, I share a glance with April and reach down to pick it up, thumbing open the cover to reveal a series of photocopies and articles. Historical records on Olga of Kiev, the woman in the painting. April murmurs something and carefully takes the folder from my hands, flicking through. Most of the content is in Russian, but some appears to be in English. Yuri, I begin, cautiously. You don't know, do you? You don't know what Alina's hiding from us. The man considers me, then shakes his head. A pipe hisses softly overhead, and the light flickers. There is writing on the wall in the cavern. In Russian, there was some in another language too. Looked a little like runes, but the Russian, were you able to read it? Yuri shrugs and grunts. He drops the file in his hands onto the desk with a thud. Old, he says simply. Very big old. Long time. Sealed away. They said, locked away. And what? He runs his tongue over his teeth. Drevlian. Yuri nods. I don't understand. What does that mean in English? Devil? Demon? He shakes his head. Means nothing. Is same in English as Russian. Drevlian is word. Drevlian. I run the word through my head, but it means nothing to me. April suddenly reaches out a hand, and she grabs me by the arm. I jolt in surprise and turn to look at her. But the woman is staring intently down at the page, her eyes wide. Adam, she mutters. You gotta read this. There's something here that's. She is interrupted by a crackling on the radio. Lads, comes Charlie's voice, grainy and far away. I think you might want to make your way to the front door. We have a guest. Too damned much is happening at once. But the three of us don't need much convincing. We're up at once and marching down the corridors, quickly between the scarred walls of the complex to the gate at the outpost's far side. The one I passed through on my very first day here. Yuri mutters to himself in Russian. A guest, I say out loud. Is someone here? Alina only called for backup yesterday morning. There's no way Christian's replacement could be here already. Right, she said it would take way longer. Adam, April hisses. I really do need to talk to you. But we reach the gate. Charlie is there, as is Alina, and they part to allow us a view out into the courtyard beyond, into the grim, gray haze of the evening. And there, to my utter shock, stands a man I recognize. A man from my base. And a man I am well familiar with. He stares at me, and I at him. Hi guys, the man says, with an awkward wave, his accent the same as mine. It's good to meet you, I think. He glances down to the pile of charred bones in which he stands. The name is Adam Smith, reporting for duty.